That night, Ethan was scrolling through old live streams. T letter 1B0 letter 1EDF, NGN who CH letter 1EC9, D stroke letter 1EC3, GI letter 1EBF, TTH letter 1EDDI Giant. But the moment he opened Claire's latest broadcast, everything inside him froze. There she was, laughing with thousands of viewers, casually bragging about how she had manipulated him into buying her a Tesla. Every word felt like a blade twisting deeper, each smile on her face pulling down another piece of his trust. He replayed the clip again and again, hoping he had misunderstood, but the truth only grew sharper. The betrayal wasn't subtle, it was deliberate, practiced, almost celebratory. And in that moment, Ethan realized the birthday surprise he'd planned was no longer a gift. It was a trap he had walked into with his heart wide open. Something inside him shifted, slow but undeniable, and he understood that nothing about this night would end the way he once imagined. Ethan didn't hesitate. The moment the shock settled into something sharper, something colder, he hit the button to start his own live stream. His hands weren't shaking, but his chest felt tight, like his body hadn't caught up with his mind yet. Viewers poured in fast, notifications lighting up the corner of his screen as thousands joined within minutes. He didn't warm up the stream, didn't greet anyone, didn't ease into the story. He simply pulled up the Tesla confirmation email and, with a single click, canceled the entire order. The chat exploded with confusion, questions, and disbelief, but Ethan didn't say a word. He opened another window, showing the charity he had chosen weeks earlier for a different project. Then he took the entire $52,000 he'd saved for Claire's gift and donated it live, every receipt displayed clearly on the screen. The viewers fell silent, even the chaotic ones, as the gravity of what he was doing began to settle in. Claire showed up at Ethan's door less than 10 minutes after the raid ended. He hadn't even shut down his computer when the pounding started, frantic and uneven, as if every knock came from a different emotion she couldn't control. He opened the door not because he wanted to, but because he needed the final piece of closure. The moment she saw him, she collapsed into tears that felt rehearsed, too sharp, too sudden, like a performance meant for an audience she'd lost. Her words tumbled out in a panicked rush, claiming she'd been stressed, overwhelmed, pushed by viewers, misunderstood. She shifted blame from the chat to the pressure of content creation, then to him, accusing him of being distant, inattentive, too generous, not generous enough. The excuses stacked on top of each other like a collapsing tower, each one thinner than the last. Claire tried to rebuild herself the very next morning. She filmed a video titled "My Truth," sitting in soft lighting, pretending to look fragile and misunderstood. She talked about stress, anxiety, pressure, how people online never understood her humor. She painted herself as a victim of a misunderstanding, hoping sympathy would drown out the truth Ethan had exposed. But the internet had already shifted. The comments beneath her video were unforgiving, filled with people who had watched the clips Ethan shared and were no longer willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. Dislikes climbed faster than views, and within hours, the video became a magnet for backlash. She showed up less than 10 minutes after the raid ended, pounding on his door with the desperation of someone watching their world collapse. Ethan didn't move at first. He simply stood in the hallway, listening to the uneven rhythm of her fists, the choked breaths leaking through the cracks, the frantic repetitions of his name. When he finally opened the door, Claire stumbled inside as if she feared he might vanish if she didn't cross the threshold fast enough. Her makeup was streaked, her hair disheveled, her voice trembling so violently she could barely form words. She insisted it was a joke, that the live stream had been taken out of context, that she had been pressured by her audience into saying things she didn't mean. She shifted blame from the viewers, to stress, to misunderstandings, to anything that wasn't her own choices. Ethan watched her with a stillness she'd never seen before. There was no anger in his eyes, no shouting, no accusations. Just a quiet, resolute distance that made her panic grow sharper. She tried to touch his arm, then tried to hug him, then tried to kneel, but Ethan stepped back every time. He told her that he had reviewed everything, every clip, every message, every small moment he had dismissed because he wanted to believe she cared. He said he finally understood the pattern, the subtle demands packaged as affection, the guilt disguised as vulnerability. Claire cried harder, insisting she loved him, insisting he was overreacting, insisting that everyone made mistakes. But Ethan didn't bend. He told her the truth he had been avoiding for months. Every emotion she presented had been calculated, every gesture measured, every soft word timed for maximum effect. He had loved someone who never truly existed. When he pointed toward the door, her voice broke into raw pleading. She promised therapy, transparency, anything he wanted if he would just give her one more chance. But the part of Ethan that once believed in her was gone. He asked her to leave. She refused at first, clinging to the edge of the counter as if the kitchen itself might save her. But eventually, when she saw that nothing she said could change what Ethan had already accepted, she stepped outside. The door closed slowly, not slammed, not rushed, just final. And for the first time in months, Ethan felt the weight in his chest ease, replaced by a quiet, steady certainty that he had finally walked out of the illusion she had built around him. Claire's collapse didn't happen all at once. It unfolded slowly, painfully, like a building losing support beam by beam until nothing could hold it upright anymore. The first blow came from the platforms themselves. Comments turned hostile, follower counts plummeted, and every video she posted was met with skepticism or outright mockery. Even her most loyal fans began to distance themselves, unsure how to defend someone whose own words had exposed her. Brands quietly pulled sponsorships, some issuing polite statements about reevaluating partnerships, while others simply deleted her from future campaigns without explanation. Her income, once steady and comfortable, dropped so abruptly that even she couldn't pretend nothing was wrong. Ethan spent weeks rebuilding the parts of himself that had been quietly worn down without his awareness. He woke up earlier, not because he felt pressured to be productive, but because his mind finally felt light enough to move without resistance. He returned to streaming with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years, opening his broadcasts by talking about financial boundaries, emotional consent, and the subtle warning signs he had once ignored. Viewers resonated with his honesty, and before long, his community grew into a place where people shared their own experiences of manipulation, sometimes speaking their truth for the first time. Ethan listened to every story, recognizing pieces of himself in them. Each one reminded him why he refused to let bitterness take root. Ethan didn't try to rewrite the past or search for closure that no longer mattered. He focused on the present, on the quiet steadiness that had finally settled into his life. The website he created to expose financial manipulation had achieved its purpose, reaching people who needed to hear the warning, so he shut it down without hesitation. He continued donating to the same charities he had supported during the live stream, but now he did it privately, without cameras, without announcements, without turning pain into spectacle. Messages kept arriving in his inbox, most from strangers thanking him for giving them the courage to leave harmful relationships, others sharing stories they had held in silence for years. He read everyone, even when the weight of them lingered long after midnight. One evening, a familiar name appeared at the top of his message list. It was Claire, writing a long apology filled with regret, explanations, and pleas for forgiveness. Ethan didn't open it. He simply archived the message and let the moment pass like a gust of wind brushing against a closed door. He understood now that healing wasn't about revisiting broken places. It was about stepping forward, trusting what people show you, and believing yourself when something feels wrong. And for the rest of his life, he carried one truth with him like a compass pointing north. When someone reveals who they truly are, especially under the spotlight of thousands, you don't argue with the evidence. You believe it and move on.